Now, please welcome Lieutenant General Francis L. Donovan, Vice Commander of U.S. Special Operations Command, for a discussion on delivering military advantage with Special Operations Forces. The conversation will be moderated by James Ryseff, Director for Defense at SCSP.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome. We have this conversation during a time of great change, both in technology overall and for Special Operations Command in particular. Special Operations Command has been pivoting its focus away from an era of counterterrorism and sub-state conflicts towards an era where it's going to focus more on near-peer competitors, specifically China, and great power competition. At the same time, we've watched as artificial intelligence is no longer simply a futuristic conflict or concept relevant only to some far-off hypothetical warfare or the future, but instead is a critical component of modern warfighting, making a difference on the battlefields of today. The scope of future conflict will extend across all domains and require seamless integration of capabilities. And Special Operations Command has been pioneering efforts to synchronize operating and controlling autonomous systems across this vast spectrum. SOCOM's ability to adapt and innovate is heavily reliant on strong partnerships, both with industry, venture capital, and with academia. And these collaborations will be essential for rapidly developing and fielding the cutting-edge technologies required to maintain America's decisive advantage over its future enemies. Given all that context, we are so honored to be joined by Lieutenant General Frank Donovan, the Vice Commander of Special Operations Command, to discuss these transformations in our Special Operations community. General Donovan, welcome.
Thanks, James. Appreciate it.
So let's get right into it. Lieutenant General Donovan, you've clearly articulated that the GWOT ship has sailed, and that SOCOM's focus is going to be shifting dramatically to near-peer, great power conventional conflict. Tell us about SOCOM's journey to reinvent itself for the era of great power competition, while still facing persistent but reduced counterterrorism threats. What are some of the greatest challenges you have faced in making that transition, and what are some of the greatest opportunities you see to leverage SOCOM's unique strengths?
James, thank you. And when we say that the GWOT ship has sailed, I use that because the GWOT resourcing ship has sailed. And the fact that we now, as we come out of 20 plus very hard years where U.S. SOCOM and our soft forces forward, we're carrying a very heavy load for the nation. The nation asked us to go down that path and executed an amazing task across the globe, with obviously the main effort being in Iraq and Afghanistan, and then southern Philippines and East and West Africa, and up in Syria. So that we took everything we learned there and brought that forward because times have changed. Now, one thing just to make sure everyone's clear, that we are not walking away from our responsibilities to America, our remit to do counter-VEO and counterterrorism operations. So the way General Fenton looks at the command right now, and we look at our pie chart, about 40% of the command is dedicated every single day on counter-VEO and CT operations, where we have forces still throughout the world that are keeping an eye on the most dangerous external threats to the United States of America, and are positioned to strike if required, and we do it on a regular basis. So you still have your soft teammates and enablers out there every day in the hard places doing the hard things. So, but that is about 40% of the enterprise. 60% of the enterprise now coming out of Iraq and Afghanistan have pivoted back to, it's almost what we call the soft renaissance, back to our core roots of what we are created for, to provide national leaders options that complement and or enhance and or are separate from the conventional force. And I think that goes back to our time in, I think of often I reference Max Hastings, the Abyss, and the decisions that President Kennedy had to make during the Cuban Missile Crisis. Pretty stark decisions, but then, hey, don't I have other options? And out of that came Green Berets, UDT and Navy SEALs, and then the evolution of the soft enterprise. So as we come out of further away from time in the desert and the GWOT time, we are re-indexing to ensure that we are still in the right places around the globe to counter the current counter-VEO threats, but also now enable the joint force. That's our primary task. Enable the joint force so they can execute and win. And that is really what we've focused on. And again, the key is that kind of that renaissance. We've always been able to go places that the conventional force cannot go, and do things that only SOCOM can do with allies and partners or independently. And that's a real advantage for the joint force, an advantage for our national decision makers to have those options out there. And we provide that every day. So that's the evolution. And with that, then we are our budgeting and our focus ensures we can do both missions, and our forces are prepared for both. And both require very similar hard skills, but at the same time, we're also pushing ourselves on the path to really force ourselves to go further, to go faster, to evolve quicker, so we can be an advantage to the joint force.
What do you find is the most essential part of that ability to evolve quicker? What do you find is SOCOM's secret sauce that does let you sort of be that more agile, adaptive area?
You know, I know it's a tech conference and everyone wants me to say it's a tech thing. It's not. It's our people. It remains, you know, we still focus on our people. Our first soft truth, the first, you know, SOF truth is that people are more important than hardware. And that's very true, right? Even when we have some incredible opportunities right now. And again, things we've learned in our targeting cycle and during the GWAT, remarkable. But none of that is possible without the incredible Americans that come to our formation, both what we consider the operators and our enablers. Those two together, and then I'm talking about the support structure, the families, all that. People are more important than hardware. So we couldn't evolve as fast as we are right now without matching some of this incredible tech with these incredible Americans. That's the secret sauce, but it comes back to our people.
Yeah, absolutely. So in this context of long-term strategic competition with China, where influence, access, and ambiguity often matter more than open conflict, what role do you see SOCOM playing in shaping the battlefield below the threshold of war? And how are you evolving special operations capabilities to contest China's activities in the gray zone?
Okay. You know, contesting China's activities, the PRC's or the CCP's activities, the gray zone, I like to think that we are the gray zone force. You know, they should be worried about us just as much as we might be concerned about them. And our desire is to disrupt their decision-making calculus, that our activities in the gray zone cause them to be concerned, that their plans might not execute as they're desired. And so that goes back to every day, we have about 7,000 SOF teammates and enablers out there across the globe in key locations where the CCP and other threats are out there, and we're pretty close. And working with allies and partners, because that's one of our advantage in the gray zone, is that we have allies and partners and friends. They have transactional relationships. And so we have proven time and again that our ability to maintain those generational relationships with allies and partners, and again, SOF could not operate without the incredible allies and partners we have from the SOF community across the globe. And so that gives us access and placement, gives us a position advantage, and allows us not just to compete, but to cause the CCP concerned about the gray zone. We're the gray zone force for DoD.
Yeah. So the enduring, need to control tempo and sort of make them react to you. That's very interesting. So you've also stated at Special Operations Week 2025 that AI should become the same as breathing or walking for Special Operations Command, and that you view it as a strategic imperative rather than simply just as a tool. How does the Special Operations Command plan to scale enterprise-wide application of AI, especially given that other military leaders have admitted that a lack of understanding is holding back broader AI adoption across the Department of Defense? What does Special Operations Command learn about how to successfully incorporate AI into its missions and workflows? And what limitations do you see still holding back its ability to leverage AI as a tool?
Right. I think the idea that we're holding back leaders, or that's an age thing, or just an experience base that we're holding it back, I don't think that is truly the case. It might seem like that from certain perspectives, but the reality is, the AI and some of the tech pieces that are tied to AI and how we run data flows aren't mature enough to see some of the benefit at different levels, right? So on the targeting cycle, we flow data quickly. We can see the clear advantage, how to sift through. I mean, you think of how much data is on the cutting room floor that no one ever looks at, whether it's full motion video, whether it's SIG and collect, whatever it is. These tools will clearly help us move quicker and execute a targeting cycle much more fast. And again, I would think that most people want to talk about the tactical level execution of AI, but I'd like to kind of pivot off of that for a second, because as the Vice Commander of SOCOM, responsible for requirements and helped them build a POM every year, a budget every year, and have to run the enterprise, I'd like to see the AI tools that help us run the enterprise more efficiently, because I think we want to make sure, going back to the soft human is more important than hardware. We never want to burden our operator that's at the edge in contested or denied spaces to be burdened, okay, by the trappings of AI and requirements of power and computing and stacks and systems. We want to have the bare minimal forward, be in that black dark mode as much as we can, come up on the net when required, and then maximize the goodness of what these tools bring. But I think in the headquarters, I was prepping for this, I wanted to get a clean example of how we at SOCOM are using, we just got an update yesterday. We have a Guardian AI-enabled tool to build our budget. I mean, again, it doesn't sound exciting. You probably think SOCOM, talk about faster open and strikes. I'm going to talk about building a budget more effectively, because that's important to me, because I want to be able to show that we have a good return on the investment that American taxpayers are making in SOCOM, but we use this tool, integrating data from across multiple databases into that single kind of pool, and use the generative AI to deliver insights and provide true courses of action to make sure that our baseline budget and our top line remains about constant. Then we have inflations and challenges, must pay bills, but how do we ensure that what we're investing in is not only taking care of that counter VOCT mission every single day around the globe, but we're modernizing at the same time. Our investment's correct. Now, we can have a large number of staff officers doing that type of work, and we want them still in the loop to provide their expertise, but we can move quicker with more volume and data to make the better decisions, so General Fenton can make the right pitch, so when we compete our budget, okay, with other elements of DoD, it is tight, it's focused, it's what we need. We're cutting away the excess and modernizing at the same time executing operations globally. We're very unique as SOCOM because we're a micro of the macro of the joint force. We have Army, Navy, Marines, and we actually have a Space Force component now inside of SOCOM. And so we will take their data too, and their capability, and bring them into the SOCOM kind of approach. So we're very unique. A service can stay inside their service lane. We have to play across a joint force and bring that data into our data flows. And so, an AI-enabled tool to help build a budget, and I'd like one to help me pass the audit. Again, doesn't sound exciting. It's what I'm excited about. But the reality is, the tactical level, clearly, you can go out here and see these Marines doing drone operations. They'll figure that out and maximize the use. The warning to anyone out there bringing us something that's not open architecture, that's not plug and play, that's not vendor lock, we will throw it away. And if it can't get cold and wet, and I can't take it deep underwater, I can't bring it into space, I can't. When the chips are down, this thing is guaranteed to work. Not interested. So again, that's where the tech and the data don't burden us. Okay, free us to operate quicker.
What are some of the things that, when an AI tool frustrates you or sort of disappoints you, what are some of have you noticed any patterns or any things that, when it doesn't work quite the way you need it to be, that you would comment on?
I think the piece is that, and that's my probably not reluctance, because for 2 years I've been really working hard on this in the command to just embrace it, and I've seen some really good, like this POM piece, really starting to see it used. But if every time I have to do something for it to get something back, not interested, right? I mean, that's the reality, is that, hey, it'll work if I get a sales pitch or something. This is going to work. It's going to be able to do this thing, can translate it, large language models, good. But as a staff leader for General Fenton, and as a former commander commanding many times, I'm looking for a tool that enhances staff planning, okay, at that level, again, especially at the higher levels, because so many things are happening right? Any given operations, we were talking before. If I'm off the coast of country X and I'm operating the maritime domain, I'm 1,000 miles from that coast, there are so many things happening in the environment, in the threat, and maintenance and readiness happening 24/7, never stops. A tool that can allow us to see all that, do the analyze that through not only the data streams, but then sit as the very experienced command and staff team and make right decision, not one decision, but many decisions along the way. I'd like to see that. I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah.
You're promised a lot of that, right? And it's like, wait for it, it's coming. Okay, we'll be ready to embrace it when it's there. It's not quite there yet.
Yeah, completely. So you've championed the Seabed to low Earth orbit operational vision, exemplified by operations like Sonic Spear 25, where SOCOM is transforming the future of warfare by integrating advanced technologies like AI, autonomous systems, and robotics to foster agile multi-domain operations and ensure SOF's ability to operate effectively alongside the joint force in contested and denied environments. As SOCOM increasingly integrates these technologies, what's the calculus for optimizing lethality and determining when a human needs to be in the loop versus on the loop, particularly where speed, scale, and risk demand a balance between control and autonomy?
It's a great question, James. James mentioned Sonic Spear. So in 2025, for the first time in SOCOM's history, we had a 4-star level exercise. And again, you would think it was, parachuting, subsurface, things exploding. It was about a soft data layer, common core architecture and soft data layer, so that we could have our soft forces, whatever sensor to effector, that whatever shows up from that joint force offering, we can bring it all together. Had what's called a bow tie, and how we're bringing these systems together. So the reason why is that as we again step away and take the hard-earned lessons from GWAT, bring it into now deterrence, enabling a joint force. What we are putting the force together, and the future vision right now, we're modernizing very rapidly right now, is the multi-domain joint special operations task force. And where if you'd come across the Joint Special Operations Task Force in Iraq and Afghanistan, very similar in many ways, whether it was Navy SEALs or Green Berets or Raiders, because we were doing a very similar mission. Probably operating a FOB, but probably could count on 24/7 air superiority, of course, and ISR and a QRF in the golden hour. What about when we have none of that, which is what we're talking about right now? And so how do we then present the soft force now and in the future? And what the term we use is Seabed to low Earth orbit. So if you think about the presentation of the soft force, not everyone doing a lot of the same things we had to do in Iraq and Afghanistan, but everybody lined up to do what they're really good at. So let's say at the bottom, sub-sea, we'll have our NSW teammates, on clandestine submersible craft, dry submersible craft, deep into the littorals that we've never been able to get to before, and where that human can't go, or an ROV or robot even going further. Then back that up to clandestine surface craft with our Marine Raiders doing maritime domain awareness on a coastal littoral area, to the Green Beret teams operating with partners up in the hills, out to our AVSOC partners that are above us with some incredible developments we're making with drone technology at scale, and that's what I'll say about that. And then again, the Space Force component we have now that brings the space capability. But think about those soft capabilities lined up. And then when they're lined up and synchronized, we deliver those synchronized effects, that joint force commander, we enable joint force maneuver. So Seabed low Earth orbit, Sonic Spear, holding ourselves accountable every year now to bring all the capabilities together and bring the tech. We go out to industry, find our gaps, and say, this is the gaps we need solved. Bring it together, play it out, and if that's something that fits, we move very quickly. SOCOM has an acquisition process that is fantastic. It's the same as every other service, but we move very fast. One, it's a scale thing, plus General Fenton, I run the requirements. He can put budget right to requirements, and we can get it out to the hands of the operators very quickly. So we can move and evolve and modernize very quickly and bring the best of the services, all with a focus on enabling the joint force to maneuver in those denied spaces.
Given the failures we've seen from requirements development from some of the other parts of the military, what advice would you give to your fellow commanders about how you guys get it right to really match those requirements to the true need?
Yeah, I see we get it right most of the time, and I think there's a lot of talk about acquisition reform right now.
Right.
We're also focused in the command on requirements reform. So if we were, in the beauty of SOCOM, we're a bottom-up organization. We have the best Americans as our operators, enablers, and staff that will solve DoD's soft, specific, and some of DoD's hardest problems. So that's how we've been operating for a long time, bottom-up, all good. But if you're a little more fungible, all doing the same mission, you have a lot of people modernizing for a similar mission.
Yeah.
So what we're doing, and part of this Sonic Spear, is to ensure our requirements match our actual enterprise needs. So we published the first time in 2025 a SOCOM enterprise gap list. So all the components feed that, we exercise it in Sonic Spear, and then we match our requirements to our actual requirements. Again, GWAT resourcing is gone, so we have to be smart about this and to ensure that what we're investing in is actually closing a gap, and that makes our requirements tighter, more focused, and now we have built into our education for our commanders understanding requirements. Because when a commander comes in, real excited about what they want to do as a commander, I want to do this and that, all good, but we need to build a bit of a box to keep the requirements steady, evolve and revolutionize when required. But what you don't want to do is fishtail with a lot of requirements, because you never get there. And so we're focusing really on requirements reform, and it sounds really counterintuitive, James. I like to say no earlier. Because if you go on a journey, and General Fenton's done incredible work reaching out to the innovation community, the VC community, hey, join with us on this journey. But what we were told is that if it doesn't have a transition, don't go down this path.
Right.
So if it doesn't fit in a gap, we're going to say no earlier and ask you to focus on our real gaps.
Yeah, yeah.
If that
That actually reminds me a lot of the software engineering industry, where if the only way to get back on schedule is to cut features, and the earlier you do it, the better off you'll be. So while there's a lot of focus on bringing technology and bringing new capabilities to bear, your comments also clearly imply the need to remember that new technologies are not a panacea, and that humans are going to remain an essential part of warfare. What are some of the enduring strengths you want your operators to bring to the human-machine team? And how do you think about preparing your personnel to operate alongside rapidly improving but still imperfect AI tools?
It's a great question. I don't think we're ever going to get away from, again, the first soft truth: humans more important than hardware. We think about that. We still need young Americans coming to us. They want to come to SOCOM. They can't just show up. They have to go through a very, very rigorous assessment and selection to become into the command. And I have a daughter right now that's going through assessment selection down in MARSOC. So I think of the journey she's on, coming from the fleet as a 4-year sergeant in the intel community, now going to be working and proving herself to be an intel Marine at MARSOC, right? And I'm watching that process. That's what we need to do, because we need to test and eval, bring these young folks in so they can actually then perform at this next level. We can't forget that that's the most important thing. So we still need physical fitness, we still need grit, we need endurance, we need mental fitness, mental health, we need their family squared away, we need all their core hard skills, apex level, going out the door. Then we match that again with the tech, and then make sure we don't get overwhelmed by the tech, and I think we have a good recipe. So I don't think we'll ever back away from the real requirements. Again, why SOCOM was created, and soft humans were brought to the mix, because we need a brand, a slice of DoD that can go the places only SOCOM can go, do the things only SOCOM can do. So again, my vision is that, or our vision, our thoughts is that as we push these soft folks deeper into contested and denied spaces, and that's, again, if you think of on any given Sunday in competition around the globe, then as we start to move into crisis and then conflict, SOF is there to enable a joint force and enable national leadership to either accelerate or decelerate out of conflict. And if we go to conflict, to enable joint force to fight and win very rapidly. And so those people we ask to do that are very special Americans. And we have to continue to select the top folks and ensure that they get the best training, the best equipment, and then we match tech like AI at the right time and place, with the vision being, if you think about it, as I think about Seabed low Earth orbit, that soft enabler or operator deepest in the weapons engagement zone, or they pop up, they're relatively dark, no comms, but they come up on comms, they pulse, they grab track quality data, feed it back into the Joint Fires Network. They're able to take latest guidance and direction, and then they disappear again. Hard to target and very hard to counter for our adversaries. That's a special human. So humans first, tech has to enable, not overwhelm, and if it doesn't enable, we're going to turn it off and throw it over the side. Yeah.
So you've candidly remarked that everyone is buying data right now,
Yeah.
and that they talk about data much the same way that they talked about ISR maybe 20 years ago. That suggests some degree of healthy skepticism around sort of some of the hype around some of these capabilities. How is Special Operations Command ensuring the vast amounts of data that are being collected and processed by AI systems are truly relevant, trustworthy, and actionable for operators on the ground, as opposed to creating an overwhelming data deluge that fosters potential over-reliance on these systems?
Yeah. I think that might be, we'll hit real quickly on, I think what we've realized, we have an incredible CDAO down at US SOCOM. The path we've been on in the last 2 years, what we've realized is that buying data, buying systems, getting APIs and get everything, all good, but unless we train the force, right? And I'm saying that we call them the digital natives, the digital staff, the network engineers that sit right next to our soft operators and help to solve problems. But unless we train that force, but I think that they will get it. What I think we need to focus on is training our managers and our leaders on what to expect from data, right? What to demand from data to ensure that we can then leverage it and use it effectively, not be controlled by it. And I think that's the journey we've been on. We have mobile training teams that go to our subordinate commands to teach data engineering and use of data, use of AI tools. We have AI tools popping up in our classified and unclassified networks right now, and we're all kind of working our way forward. So there's no holding back. It's just getting the staffs to trust and then to leverage it appropriately. But the only danger being is that we don't want to remove the human interaction, the face-to-face, that we develop trust in each other first, and then develop trust in data that allows this trust between two of us to rise to that next level to manage it. So training the data-enabled workforce in our headquarters, in our component headquarters, is our #1 push right now. Then we can get to a point of truly running and maximizing tools like AI.
What do you say is the right balance between sort of data specialists, like a trained data scientist or trained analytics person, and sort of trying to develop existing personnel in sort of the data direction? Like, what do you see as maybe the force structure of the future for SOCOM in terms of its data personnel?
We go through this. We talk about this a lot because I think the image is, it might be Hollywood, it might be whatever, that we have a SEAL crawling across the beach, peels off the wetsuit, and there's a tuxedo underneath, and he breaks out his keyboard and he starts. So my thing is, less business suits, more wetsuits, okay? and we still need to attract the right humans to do the hard grit, cold, hard, wet, long, and we still need to have access to the data and the tech humans. How do we marry them together, and where they link is key. I think that's where the path we're on, is that we don't want to burden forward, but we want to have the right mix in higher than. The question is, how much of this do you want to own? How much do you just want to get the effects? I think that's the key. Do I want to own the stack and the classified space to store it in and all the AC and all that? Or do I want to set the arrangements I can pull and just own the effects? I think that's the task. Do we hire people to do this? Do we outsource? Where do we store the data, and how do we pull it? And what's the right balance of the force?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. This has been a wonderful conversation.
Thanks,
really
James.
appreciate your presence here.
Okay, thank you very much.